What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Coffee and Questions podcast. I am Michelle Berman-Michael, your host. You know that, but today specifically, I get to have a conversation that I have never had on the podcast. And this is honestly one that I've kind of dreamt up in my head. Someday this magical person will come and I will get to do this interview. And today it is finally here, and I'm so excited to have the one and only Robert Courtney. If you are not following him on social, guys, he is doing some crazy cool stuff and just so like-minded that this is going to be very hard for us to stop, I think, today. But if
Yes.
you don't know him, he is a brand strategist and a social media strategist. He's also the creator of an incredible conference, CreatorCon. He just had his third one. He's also very connected to a very good mutual friend of ours, Jonathan Haddad, who is the current CEO of AIM, and just a really good overall dude. So, Robert, I couldn't wait to get connected to you. So we'll thank Jonathan for that. But I would love for you to introduce yourself. Who are you? How did you get into the space that you're in? What do you do, etc., so on and so forth.
Yeah. So first, thank you for having me. Thank you, John, for the intro. If you're watching this, uh, uh, yeah. So I am 15 plus years into this social media space that we know and love. My start came from a clothing brand way back 2007, 2008, when MySpace hit the scene, and it was widely considered as a video game that no one took serious. Like, we couldn't really process the idea that people could do actual business on the internet. And it was something that people made fun of me for. And I was literally on MySpace looking for looking for customers and looking for people to showcase myself and to showcase my brand. And so building brand, building awareness through the internet, through the phone, has literally become second nature because I have done it for so long. And I use social media to build my first company, literally from scratch. Facebook circa 2011, 2010, where I was traveling the country and building out events on personal profile pages and using all the local schools, businesses, and connections to add 15, 20,000 people to events in each city, where we would then go to that city and host fashion shows around the country. And so
Oh, wild. Can we just take a
I'm
second?
about
That
to say,
is so wild.
when you talk about grassroots social media strategies, like, I feel like I invented so many that we saw for so long. And as the platforms change, a lot of those tactics and strategies went away too. But like, that's the fun part. It's like playing a video game and learning all the cheat codes, and then they come out with a new game, and then you have to do it all over again, you know? And so I really became obsessed with the strategies, doing and understanding the secrets beyond what the common user of these platforms would know or understand. And I feel like it's kind of become my purpose to teach other people, to show other people, to help companies and organizations understand the inner workings behind what they think is the answer or the solution, and give them better strategies to help them grow.
It's so good, and it's so true because I preach it every day. And you and I had an amazing conversation before we scheduled doing the show, of the conversations that we have to have with our clients when they call
Yes.
us, right? They call us and they say, I need help with this and that, and they honestly don't even know what they're asking for half the time. um and coming from a space similar to yours, in the sense of, I wasn't building a clothing brand, but I was on the receiving end of that, where in 2014 I was buying and selling Instagram accounts and flipping them like you would buy and sell real estate. So the clothing brand type of organization would reach out to me and say, hey, Michelle, how much for 24 hours on your page? And the company or the organization would pay me that money. I would create an ad, write some copy or caption to go with it, produce it on my page, and see what happened in 24 hours. But when you do it for as long as I did, and as you have taken part in, you start to pick up on the things behind the curtain. So what am
Right.
I talking about? Fake video views, fake likes, this thing called power likes, which still runs rampant today, where
Yes.
all of a sudden a post will go live, and then within the first 20 minutes, it like slowly just skyrockets to all of a sudden they have thousands and thousands of likes. And frankly, this is a caveat, but my brain is going there. I share stages with people at some of these events that you have been to, that I've been to, where I know for a fact that they're doing that. They're cheating the system, right?
Yeah.
In the sense of they're trying to create a perception that's not reality. But talk to me a little bit about the question side of things, right? So now fast forward to where you are today running a CreatorCon event, which I'm so excited to hopefully get to attend this year if you'll have me, but just such a cool concept too, because there's so few of us that I really feel like are paying attention to the things that truly matter. Meaning, are you having conversations? Are you waking up to messages in your inbox? Are you waking up to conversations of somebody saying, hey, Robert, what does it look like to work with you? Versus, are you focused on the vanity side? So, talk
Yeah.
to me about the conversations that you're having when it comes to what you produce on social and like what your messages look like when you get them in your inbox.
Yeah, I mean, my brain went to so many different places as you were speaking. I mean, if we just start back around the time that you spoke of in terms of flipping these brands and helping them grow and using your attention, your community, your audience in terms of driving awareness to them, that was a totally different algorithm, right? Like that was the the good old days of
It's really
social.
what.
Yeah, and we didn't even understand, like as brands, as someone who has paid a company like yours to try to get more reach and to get more attention, and absolutely having no idea of what I was looking for. It was just how many followers does she have, and then how much engagement or how many comments does she have on her page. And if they seem like a lot, which we didn't even know what a lot was, but if it seemed like a lot based on how you sold it and the examples you gave, we were willing to pay. And the algorithm back then also served it played a different game in terms of how people saw the content that you put out. And it was more based on who you were connected to versus the interest of the individuals. And so we've seen a complete shift, especially with TikTok and how the algorithm has been built on interests, and how the older platforms like Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn, and how these platforms are trying to keep up with that, and they're changing and correcting their platforms algorithm. And in all honesty, it should have probably been that way from the beginning, because that's how we function as humans. In terms of uh, relationships and CreatorCon, I've always been a huge proponent of people first. Like, and people first to us in my organization means our social media success is only as good as the relationships that we can build off of social media, right? And that's not to say that social media doesn't play a huge role in that, because it's this full circle. You meet a person, the person confirms who you are through your social media content that verifies and confirms that they should potentially do business with you. Or they see you on social, then they meet you in real life. And so it typically happens one or two ways. And so what I realized early on is that if I could host events where I bring people together and then create social media content that speaks to the value I provide for the individuals that I come in contact with, it would give me huge opportunities to be able to do these things for more people. And even as I coach and train and help companies and clients that we work with understand this, there has to be some type of community-based gathering. So whether that's an online webinar, whether that's a Zoom call, whether that's an event, your social strategy has to lead people to some destination so that there can be an interaction like this. If that never happens, then the circle never completes, and then it creates a 50-50 chance on whether that person becomes a true fan, a true follower, a connection, et cetera. And so we've kind of followed that principle for as long as I've been in business. And then finally, CreatorCon is basically the epitome of that. It is, my ultimate conclusion, I guess you would say, of what all of my work has been for, to create this huge conference where I literally can spend all of my effort and energy throughout the course of the year directing my clients, my community, all the people I come in contact with to this place where we've done all this interacting online, virtually, etc. And now at the end of the year, there's this opportunity for us to meet in person and, really solidify the connection that we've been trying to establish through those conversations.
It's the best, 100% the best. I couldn't second that more than I do. It's the loop thing. I think that's important, right? I love how you said that, where you either meet someone in person and then your social does it confirm that you are who you say you are. And in my world, I say that a lot of, are you who you say you are when someone goes and looks at your social? Like, I say that phrase all the time because it's so important. If you refer someone or someone gets referred to you, and the very first thing in human nature that we do, right, is we go look you up and say, like, is this person the person that we thought we were
Yeah.
meeting? So that's first and foremost. But when you meet someone through social, you build this relationship with them, and then you meet them in real life. It's almost like you may have, and you and I both have this, right? We have clients that are like teetering on, we want to work with you, but we're not sure yet. We want to work with you, but we're not sure yet. Then you meet that person in real life. And this happened to me just last week at another event, right? I had known someone through social for a year plus and finally met him in real life. And he was like, I don't know why it took me so long. I'm sorry. I'm like, you don't need to say sorry. You just needed that interaction with me in real time to be able to make the decision that you made. And then on the flip side, you meet someone in real life and ideally they click on your social and you are who you say you are. So it's either meet in person, social confirms it, meet on social, in person confirms it, either way.
Yeah.
So I think it's super powerful. And it, to me, the relationships that we've been able to build through social, when you do get to take them to real life, it's like Christmas to me. It's just
100%.
the best, absolute best.
And I think it's important to know, especially for CEOs or salespeople who are watching this, it's their typical funnel, right? It's like it's the nurturing process. And sometimes it's not as clear when you're using Instagram or LinkedIn or Facebook for that nurturing sequence. The difference is it's never announced, like it's never called out. It just happens very organically. And so when you feel the need to connect with me or I connect with you, I am your content is put in front of my face. And if the content is interesting enough, I click on the content. And because I click on the content begins to be served to me on a regular basis. And now I start to know your life. I know your kid's name. I know you have a dog that you love. I know that you like a certain food, and so you're developing these subconscious um, aspects of this person that you don't even realize. It's like you're riding in the car and the song is playing, and then you find yourself humming the song, and you're trying to figure out, why is this song stuck in my head? Well, it's because it played on the radio and you didn't even realize it because you was in a conversation with your wife, but the song was still playing and you were still hearing it, and so that's kind of the nurturing that most people don't recognize is happening every single day with the connections that they make on social. And it's the variable that's hard to explain to business owners when they try to quantify why social media content is so important.
Oh my gosh, can we talk about that for a minute? Because I think daily, I don't want to think, I know
Yeah.
daily, I get that ask on calls. Michelle, what's the ROI of Instagram? What's the ROI of doing what you do or what you're going to teach me how to do? And holy crap, can we stop asking that question? Because it's a terrible question, right?
Yeah.
The
You're probably not
reality
my
is,
customer if you're asking me that,
no,
but
exactly. And I have said that. I have said that many, many a times in the very beginning of my career. I started in 2014, 2019, I launched Beyond the Method. But in the very beginning of my career, I used to try to answer the question, right? I
Mhm.
used to try to like fight my way through, how do I articulate the answer to this question? And I just finally got to a place where I'm like, to your point, if that's the question you're asking the wrong one, and you're probably not the right client for me. But
Yeah.
today, my thought process with ROI is it's either subliminal or tangible. Both will happen, right?
Mhm.
Tangible will happen. You and I both, we wake up, we have a message, someone says they want to work with us. Great, awesome. That's super tangible. That's direct to money in our bank accounts. But to me, the real power of social is the subliminal ROI, the ability to create relationships that create other relationships, right? Or
Mhm.
leverage. And in my world, leverage is everything. My superpower is the ability to teach a mortgage or real estate professional, or really any business owner for that matter, how to understand the power of leverage to create an opportunity for themselves through social, whether that's Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, really being the big three. Not so
Mhm.
much on TikTok or Twitter. They really, or even YouTube for that matter, they don't have the prospecting capabilities that the other three that I described do. But the ROI conversation is just the wrong thing, right? Because at the end of coaching with you or the end of coaching with me, I'll tell a client, I'll send them an email and say, can you send me, or can you reply to this email and tell me all of the things that you now know how to do, or that you now have the confidence to do that you didn't when you first started working with me? And then how do you quantify that? How do you put that, or how do you tie a dollar amount to that? Uh,
Mhm.
and if you're listening to this, you guys can't see Robert. He has a hat on called, or that says Hope Dealer. And I always say that all the time. Like, that's the word that people use to describe me, is that I give them hope. So Hope Dealer, fun. I love that. Right. But they say I give them hope. And what I really want people to understand by listening to you is that social is so much bigger than I have this video that I put out. Did it get me a lead? It's so much bigger than that. Right. And I don't know if you want to speak to that before we go into the next point, but I would love just, where is your brain going based off of the ROI conversation, and how would you answer that?
Yeah, and like I said, I've evolved to a point because I, in full transparency, would also try to answer that question
I think we all do.
when asked. And we created an acronym back when I first started, maybe 2015, 2016. It was ATTACK: audience, trust, attention, content, and consistency. And the reason I created that acronym was because of that question. The first thing that we're going to do is attempt to grow an audience for you. And if you don't have an audience on social, then you're probably not speaking to anybody, right? So I have to figure out a way to establish an audience. And then I have to figure out a way to establish trust with that audience. And I always felt like if I could do that, then the results follow. Like that was kind of the natural pattern. And so if building an audience and establishing trust and attention wasn't good enough for the client that I was speaking to, then the conversation typically ended there, because those were the things that I knew I could do when it came to social media. And you had to see value in those things in order for our relationship to work. The problem is most salespeople, and when I say salespeople, that's real estate people, that's mortgage people, that's insurance people. If you're in the professional services industry, don't respect those things. They are typically coming from a transactional place because of the nature of their business. And so it's no fault of theirs. It's just, I offer a product and you get something back in return. Like that is the nature of their brain and how it's wired. And so trying to get a transactional person to understand brand and to understand how storytelling will ultimately lead to deeper, better, more quality connections, which will then exponentially impact your bottom line in a way one sale can't, was something that, we had to figure out the correct verbiage and the correct way to articulate that in some of the initial conversations. And then through content, like how do I explain the power of brand? And what happened was 2015, 2016, because that conversation was so complicated, I entered the game. It was like, okay, in order for me to really explain this, I have to do it myself. Like I have to get hands-on and show what happens when you build brand across platforms, and
Mm.
how if I brand myself well enough, I'll never have to sell a day in my life. And that's what's happened. Like you create a magnetism where people start to come to you. What's better than your inbox being filled with people inquiring? What's better than appointments being set on your calendar and you have no idea who these people are? Like that is, to me, what we're all aiming for. And when you can get people to understand that, like you don't have to sell. If you use these platforms correctly, the selling part go out the window, because when they decide to reach out to you, they're already sold. they already trust you. They already believe that you can bring value to them. Now they're just putting a face and a voice to the things they've already read.
No, that's so good. I feel like we could stop right there and be peace out, mic drop, but I don't want to because there's another big conversation that we need to have with that. And I will tell you, Robert, you directly, right? And then obviously for the audience listening, I'm in that same place where 5, 6 years ago, I had to fight dog eat dog for every opportunity, right? You had to actively go out there and put yourself in the trenches to go create the opportunities for yourself. And that's actually your point of, in order for you to articulate the answer to the question, you put yourself in it. It's like hiring a coach, for example, not like us, but a fitness coach or a diet coach or somebody. And the person that you're hiring, they themselves has never done it or don't do it, right?
Right. Or don't look like they do it.
Or don't look like they do it, right? And my husband is a strength and conditioning coach for the military. He works here for Fort Campbell, or works here for the Army at Fort Campbell. He's prior special forces here, was stationed at Fort Campbell for many years. And he works alongside, and I by no means want to throw, the other coaches under the bus in any capacity, but they just don't do it the way my husband does it. And what is the differentiator? What's the difference? My husband walks the walk every single day, right?
Yeah.
Yesterday, he had a PT test that he had to do with all of the soldiers in a specific battalion that he's working with. Most of them, they had to do like the push-up test to be able to pass to get to a certain number. And he's the coach to help them get from where they are right now to making sure that they pass this test, right? Now, the PT test has evolved a lot over the last several years for the military. But long story short, it's, can you do a lot of push-ups, right? That's kind of what it boils down to. Well, my husband got down and had never really tested this because he doesn't really test these types of things, but he got down and did 70 unbroken push-ups in 2 minutes, right?
Mm.
Most of the soldier, he was the number one soldier of any of them there, and he's not even active duty anymore, right? So do you think those 70 people are all going to now listen to him when they say, hey, how can you do 70 push-ups? How did you train to be able to do that?
Right.
For sure, right? So what did he do after that? He came home, recorded a video, and talked up to about the experience of what he had just done. But it's like hiring someone in that capacity that hasn't done it. You're not going to do it. So
Right.
I think, both one of the reasons why, two of the reasons, but number one, big one that I'm so excited about this conversation that I really feel like people need to listen so closely is who you hire really, really, really matters. And especially in an industry like ours, Robert, right, where we're talking about social media overall, like I can help you with your brand, I can help you with your platform. My superpower being prospecting, I can help you prospect through the social platform. Knowing what questions to ask when you
Yeah.
call us to hire us is so important. So can we speak to that? Because I honestly think, I mean, you have conversations, calendar or I'm sorry, calls booked on your calendar every day, but how can you hire someone if you don't even know what you need? And so I
Right.
think knowing what you actually need first and then understanding how to ask the right questions, because many people, I don't want to say all, but many are very frustrated by the social media industry. They're very frustrated by the amount of money I've paid for a social media company to help them, right? Or the person, let's just use mortgage professional, for example, right? The amount of
Right.
money that person has paid to have their social media done for them has unfortunately created a very bad taste in their mouth for a lot of the people like me and you. Even though we're very different than those people, it's our job to articulate it. So I know I was long-winded there, but it felt relevant in this piece of this conversation. So talk to me about that side of it. If you don't know what you need, how do you ask the right questions? And then ultimately, what are they?
Yeah. So, for me, in my experience, like you mentioned, being able to play a game that you understand on a level that most people don't, I feel is what separates the good from the great. It's what should make me a coach because I put the time, the hours, the experience into learning it. Like it's a lot of times I would in the past, you would hear like people has lost respect for like the music industry because technology has eliminated the need for you to really go study the craft or like learn how to play instrument. Or like in fashion, people might say if you only do a t-shirt brand, you're not really a designer because you don't know how to sew, like you haven't put the time and energy. And so like technology has changed the way the world works to some degree. And I'm from the more of the old school mentality of, if I'm going to do something, I need to learn the craft and I need to insert myself into the craft so that I can speak to it. And so, I probably come across borderline arrogant a lot of times because I've put 15, 20,000 hours into this social media game to some degree and learning the inner workings. And so I've evolved to the point to where now I don't really look at it as asking the right questions per se. It's more of, it's my job to educate you, if you allow me to, on the things you should be asking in those consults, in those initial conversations, because I don't expect you to know. Like, I don't expect you to have enough information, because if you did, you wouldn't be probably be calling me in the first place. And the reality is there's so many imposters, like there's so many people who have watched a YouTube video or who have did their own account. That's probably the more popular one. I did this for myself, and so now I'm going to help you do it. And it is not a one size fit all type of game that we play, right? So with all that being said, I think if I am a business owner or an owner looking for a potential social media management agency or someone to hire, the number one thing is take social out of it. What do you want for yourself in your business? Like, that's the first question. Am I looking for more leads? Am I looking for more clients? Am I looking for growth? Am I looking for um uh notoriety? Am I looking for awareness? Like, what is your goal as a business in general? I think is the first question. And then the second question is, how will you and your agency help me accomplish this goal? And so that strategist or that person that you're talking to should be able to give you a step-by-step plan on how they're going to help you reach the goal that you aspire to reach. And a lot of times that doesn't necessarily mean that that person is the right fit, right? Like, that person can answer the question, but it still doesn't necessarily mean that that person is the right fit. And I think what's more important than finding a person that can give you a tactical plan is a person that you feel connected to, a person that you feel more aligned with in terms of their approach, their temperament. Like, is it easy to communicate with that person? Does that person seem frustrated in the conversation? Like, those would be, I mean, and that's kind of sales one-on-one, right? Like, these are more human things. Like, you need to find the right vibe, the person that you vibe with, because if you don't have the right vibe with the person that you're about to hire, when it comes to social specifically, it doesn't matter what you say, it will never get communicated and delivered properly through the content. Like, the content, the content is based on your social media management company or content creation company's ability to internalize what you're saying to them and then create it in a way that speaks to you and who you are and what your brand represents. And so I would say that's probably the number one thing. Like, with my team, I tell them the more they communicate with their account, the more successful they will be. And it doesn't have nothing to do with the quality of the content, it has nothing to do with the quality of the caption, it has little to do with the strategy. It has more to do with your ability to create a connection with the person that you're dealing with. And I would say that's literally 60 or 70% of what we've found in terms of retention. The clients that we retain over a long period of time is the clients that we've developed the best relationships with. And it all starts with communication.
I mean, connection is everything. And I feel like even for us as the person that they're interviewing to hire, we also have to make the decisions if you're not the right person for me or you are.
Interviewing each other.
100%. And I mean, I've had many of conversations where intuitively I'm like, please don't say yes, because I don't think you're a good fit for working with me or working for or with my team for that matter. right? And I'll never forget this because this was the one person in my close to 6 years now of running Beyond the Method specifically, like as far as coaching. And she showed up to like her second or third coaching call and she had a new person there on the call with her. And I was like, who is that? Like, I didn't recognize your name on the calendar invite. And she goes, oh, this is my new social media manager. And I'm like, what? Like,
Mm.
you're on a coaching call with me right now. I'm very confused. And it was sort of one of those, like, I kind of almost felt that intuitively on the sales call with this client before it even actually happened. It's almost like I foreshadowed it happening without actually knowing exactly how it was going to formulate. And that's
Yeah.
exactly what happened. I ended up having to fire her as a client, and I should have known better in the beginning, right? I should have listened to the little birdie telling me she wasn't a good fit. So I think just as much as the person is interviewing us, we're interviewing them too, because I think too, saying yes to everybody is not helpful
Mm-mm.
in any way. But I will tell you too, some of my favorite clients and really my favorite way of doing business every single day when we wake up and I look at my calendar, I see all the people I have private coaching calls with that day, and I can immediately peg this one's going to add or give me energy. This one's going to make me really excited and make me I'm looking forward to being on this call with this person. But if
Right.
I look at somebody on my calendar and it's making me feel like, oh, I really hope they reschedule, that's not good. So to your point, the connection piece, and most of my clients, I don't want to say all, but most, we're connecting on something related, nothing to do with work, right?
Yeah.
It's the sports aspect, it's the parent aspect. It's, I had a miscarriage in November, and there's so many people that I've talked to very recently who out of the woodwork have reached out. And because I publicly announced it right before Christmas, people were like, we had no idea. We've been really like watching your content for a long time. Can we set up a call with you? And it was like the connection point is what ultimately became the caveat to now they're on my calendar. Um, but I have a thought, and I want your brain on this idea here, because what would you say to someone right now today, regardless of the industry, doesn't matter, right? What would you say to someone who says, well, Michelle, I don't really want to put all that stuff out there, right? The miscarriage thing, you were comfortable sharing that, but what if I'm not, right? Or make it simpler, right? I have a client who really, really loves smoking cigars. Like him and his buddies, they go smoke cigars. They do all like, it's like the whole bro club thing. It's like their guys' night out. That's what they do. And he was like, well, I don't want that to necessarily be something that makes people feel uncomfortable when they see my content, because what if they see that in a negative light? I don't want my clients to think less of me, blah blah blah. But those are
Yeah.
our connectors, right? Those are our connection points.
Hmm.
So talk to me about what you say in those circumstances, because people are thinking it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what we have to realize, or what I try to explain to clients, is that we set our own boundaries, right? So what's personal to me and what may seem like sensitive information to me may seem like an everyday share to you. Like it may not seem like that big of a deal. And the reality is, as a human, if we're operating as a human in everyday life, if these are conversations that we would have with a stranger that we meet on a random trip to, the grocery store, then it's probably going to be a huge connector on the internet. And if we decided to share it. And so like that's usually the question that I ask. If you're in a conversation with somebody that you physically meet in the streets, is this something that you would be okay talking about? And if the answer is yes, then we're dealing with something else. This isn't about sharing something personal. This is about a fear of the internet that we have to work through. Because if you're thinking about it from a business standpoint and from a professional standpoint, your growth is only going to be as big as your willingness to be uncomfortable with social media. Like that's the truth. And so if you want slow growth, then you can stay in a space of comfort and we can do it the slow way. But if you want to speed that growth and hit numbers that you've never really seen, and shares that you've never really seen, then you got to operate as human as you do in real life across the different platforms that we're on.
1,000%. 1,000%. I mean, and I will tell you, I've seen it. What you're describing, I've watched it happen for these people, right? And so to our point, or way earlier on in this conversation, how can we tell you that we're the right people to listen to? Well, guys, we literally do it every single day, and we're watching it happen. And I love the way you articulated that. Like, if you would talk to somebody at the grocery store or tell somebody about, XYZ thing, then it's only, or that really the issue isn't the sharing of the personal content, it's the other aspect of what is the mental roadblock, or I say tension point in my a lot of what I say, right? But we all have it. We all
Yeah.
have, what is that tension point that's stopping us from going to that next step, or taking that next scary step for that matter.
Yeah, and usually it's I'm sorry, I didn't mean to
Oh, you're
cut you off.
fine. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, usually, it's the fright of it's the same fright that we would feel if we're speaking to one person versus going on a stage. Stage fright is the number one fear of people across the globe, right? Like people will have anxiety attacks, like they break out in hives, like if they have to speak to more than three people at a time. And the idea that I am getting on my phone and I'm posting this for the world to see creates anxiety that people struggle with. And I usually will erase that right away when I tell them, you realize like 1% of your followers see your content, right? Like maybe if you're doing a good job, 2% of the people see your content. And so it's like, if you're someone that doesn't understand the inner workings, the actual data and analytics of what you're posting, and you do this more as a hobby, then that percentage never crossed your mind. You're speaking to probably 20 people, like maybe 100 people at a time. And that's if they decide to read it. So like cut that down in half, most likely. And so like if you can eliminate the fact that this isn't being broadcasted across the world, a lot of times you can get them to try it. And it's interesting what happens when people start to get attention, because attention is a drug. So when you share something relatable and you share something human, where people start to share and respond and inbox you and comment, it's strange how all of a sudden they're a little more open to sharing a little more. And then that's
Like a
how
dopamine hit.
we
That's what it is.
exactly. So
Which, I mean, that's unfortunately, I think this is an important point to make. Unfortunately, that is what has created this burning desire in the social media space for
yeah.
virality, right? Oh, I want more followers. I want more video views. I want more likes, because it's almost like we're feeding, or they want to feed their ego, as opposed to creating the content that does the work, right? So back in 2014, I remember first starting, the buying and selling aspect of everything, and really helping these brands that were reaching out. It just grew like wildfire. But I started realizing, when a company like your t-shirt company, for example, would come to me and say, hey, Michelle, here's $5,000, pay as many different accounts as you want. Here's all of the different 10 or 15 different ads, like as far as images. Here's a few different captions. Try whichever ones you want on whichever account. And oh, by the way, pay yourself out of that. So with that, I would go and I would put your ad in all these different places, but I'd have to pay attention to the audience, right? Like, who's consuming the Instagram, what kind of people are following this type of account, who's even interested in this type of an account. Like, you have to really almost profile people,
Mhm.
profile the profile in a way. And in doing that, honestly, I just started watching it and paying attention to the writing on the wall. Like, people were so focused on the vanity metric aspect that it was completely undoing the purpose of why are we doing this in the first place,
Yeah.
because they wanted to feed an ego. So they wanted to wake up and be like, I have 1 million followers on Instagram. Okay, you probably bought 750,000 of those for $20 from some random dude that sent you a message on Instagram. But yet you wake up every morning and you feel good about that, right? Because you feel like you're super cool. And I say that because it might ruffle feathers, frankly, but I don't care, because that's also what people need to hear. And in 2014 versus today, that temperature of that conversation has changed dramatically. Like, people really understand, for the most part, that what truly actually matters is my content worth connecting with? Like, am I posting something that's designed to make people say, I like her or I like him? And in turn, does that create saves and shares and the other things that matter to help us grow? Right.
Yeah.
You know, and I look at content even of my own and I pay attention to every piece, how many saves, how many shares. Some of my least watched videos, meaning like total overall video views, get the most saves or the most shares.
Yep.
So it doesn't come down to, oh, Michelle, I got 5,000 video views on my video. I'm awesome now. No, you got 0 saves and 0 shares. So to me, that's really not, we didn't win, right? How do we win?
Yeah. I mean, it's a complete on our side. If you're not deeply entrenched in the details of everything happening, then you're probably missing so many different cues. And so it's literally like our job is literally, in my opinion, directly correlated with our ability to recognize behavior patterns in the way people interact across these different platforms. And, the follow has become like, it's such an emotional decision for people to follow people now. Like I have to really, really dig your content. I have to really, really feel connected to you in order to hit that follow button, because that follow button, the common consumer, the common person understands that that follow button means that I'm now going to see your content and my algorithm is now going to connect me with you on a level that I don't know if I'm ready. It's like you're signing up to date someone or get married when you hit the follow button. It's like that much pressure around it. And so we don't even like, I preach to my clients, my workshops, the conferences that I speak at, like your Instagram profile, talking about Instagram specifically, is now a website. Like it is presentation. It is a way for, like we spoke about earlier, for you to confirm who you are and how you show up in everyday life. And for the person that's never met you, it's a way for them to get an idea of who you are, which is why your pillars and your content buckets and your understanding of intentionality with the content that you create becomes so important. Because if you don't have pinned posts at the top of your page, kind of giving an overall profile of the things that's important to you, then you miss a huge opportunity. If your first 12 pieces of content don't speak to the things you want people to know about you, you miss a huge opportunity. If your bio isn't well articulated around who you are and the things you want people to know about you, you miss a huge opportunity. So like these are all very tactical things that we did when it came to a website, which is how people would get to know us 10 years ago. But now their knee jerk is Instagram, like their knee jerk is Facebook, their knee jerk is LinkedIn. So we have to treat these platforms as presentation pieces. And then we have to understand that followership has changed. The rules of engagement has changed. And so if your primary indicator of someone's value is still connected to the followers on their page, you're probably being hoodwinked, like you're being bamboozled, like you are being completely misled, because those two things do not mean what they did in the past. And so I feel like it's largely our responsibility through our content, through our workshops, through our webinars, through our conversations, to help educate people on what's happening on these platforms. Because we, like, TikTok could be here Sunday, it could slowly begin to go away Sunday, right? And like that's going to literally change everything. And people don't understand what that means for them from a content and a brand perspective. And so I think these conversations is what become really important for people to have a little bit of a guidance and understanding on how to proceed.
Well, the perspective changes, right? And even us being in the trenches, because I would take a gander to say that your experience in 2014, which is when I started, is totally different than our experience today in January of 2025, right? The things that we did at that point and the things that we have to do today are not the same. I think about when I was working with a client, like what was my focus in 2014? What was I trying to coach them on? What was I trying to teach them? And then I look at what I teach today, like just totally evolved in such a different, we're on a different in a different stratosphere at this point. Like, I mean, the platform, I think the platforms that you post on or the platforms you create content on, if you're not willing to change with them as they evolve, you shouldn't be on them, right?
Yeah, you're going to slowly go away.
Well, and I want to end with this. So let's have I want to have one more big ask of you, and then we'll cap it off here. But what would you say to the person right now listening to this that has said, social media is not for me. I don't need it to grow my business?
Yeah, I would say if you have a business that has already made enough money where you don't care about whether it makes any money anymore, then that's the only way that statement would be true. Other than that, the reason why social media becomes super important is because if you're not using it, everybody else is.
Mm.
And so their ability to reach more people through content is going to always outweigh anything that you can do through any other marketing effort. And that's the real it's not an opinion thing. Like this is a data thing. It's a fact thing. Like you can't there's no tool that exists that allows you to reach the amount of people that you can reach through organic social media activity. And that's not even talking about paid. Like that's not talking about putting money into the platform. That's just saying if you do a post and it reaches 10 people, which would widely be considered nothing. Like we look at reaching 10 people as like, what are you doing? Like how do you even possibly only reach 10 people? But if we put that in terms of real life, if you went and did a networking event and 10 people was there, like we would be okay with that. Like if there's 10 people who's interested in my product or service in a room and I have a chance to pitch my thing to them at the same time, I'll take that all day long and twice on Sunday. And I'm sure most business owners would agree. And so you do that in your sleep on your Instagram. You can do that in your sleep when it comes to Facebook and LinkedIn. And so that would probably be my number one point to that individual. And then the bigger point and the more experienced person would understand that no company right now that we consider a mega brand like Tesla or I don't know, the Dallas Mavericks, like these major organizations and major brands are being driven 10 times faster by personal brands. And for the individual, even if you don't see it as a necessity for your business, the power that you can create by just, or I should say, the acceleration that you can create by just documenting your daily story of the things that you enjoy. Like, it doesn't have to be a strategy. Like, all you're doing is telling us what you like and posting it on your platform. If you simply did that, you will accelerate the activity of the brand that you're connected to, as long as it obviously is in your bio and or on your pin post. If people can connect you to the brand you're affiliated with and you share the things you love, you will accelerate your brand with no strategy involved. And there's nothing that exists on the planet that gives us that type of opportunity.
No, I mean, just heck yes, is all I have to say. Like I want to end on the word accelerate and really like kind of hit that home or nail in the coffin comment, right? Of if you're not on social, you can continue to grow your business. Yes, you can cold call. Yes, you can do the traditional form of lead generation and have a successful business. But I also do think that success is defined differently by different people, right? Some think of it more monetarily as opposed to others thinking of, how do they feel when they go to bed at night, and that's how they define it. But regardless of how you define it, I believe social is the fastest and the best way to accelerate your opportunities. I'm going to use your word because it's so good, right? Like accelerate is what happens, and what you can do by cold calling, right? This is my favorite way to describe this. you have 2 lists. You have 100 names on one list, first name, last name, phone number. Second list, you have first name, last name, phone number, and you have 3 things that they've recently posted about on social, personally or professionally. How much different is the result of calling list 2 as opposed to calling list 1? I mean, I think.
And let's not mention, when you're doing those cold calls, you are selling. When you are doing it through social, you are branding. 2 very different things. If we get 50 people to buy out of that 100-person list through the cold calls, and we get 50 people to engage out of the list on the social media platforms, these are going to probably be customers for life, because now they have an access to me and an ability to form emotional connection with me through my content. So the future benefits of winning these 50 across your platforms is going to far outweigh the 50 people that might have said yes through the cold calls.
Couldn't have said it better. I think that's a perfect way to wrap this up, because that was just awesome. I mean, the last hour has been really insightful for me. And as I have said to you, Robert, privately, and also here on the very beginning of this was a conversation I've been seeking for a very long time, of how do you put 2 brains together that think the way that we think to help people understand things the way that we understand them, but do it in a palpable way where someone who can listen to this isn't saying, oh, well, Robert and Michelle are saying that if I'm not on social, I can't win. Like, we didn't say that, right? We just said that you can win doing it the other way, but if you want to use social, or if you want to dramatically accelerate your opportunities, you have to show up on social. And we gave a lot of really tactical ways to do that. And I'm sure, we could easily talk for another 2 hours, but I think the best way to wrap this up for the audience is, Robert, what do you have coming up that someone could get dialed into? Is there a webinar you have? Is there an event you're speaking at? Something like that. And then also, how do we connect with you through social?
Yeah, so you can connect with me, Robert Courtney Collins, across every platform. You can Google that. Tons of opportunities to connect with me online. And then in terms of what do I have a lot of things, but the big thing that we're planning in the next month and a half or so is the grand opening of the social media store, which will be located here in Detroit. But through that, there will be membership programs starting, which will be available for everyone. And through that membership, it'll give you access to all of my coaching programs, all of my workshops, all of our in-house workshops that we'll be doing will be recorded, and they will live inside of this membership program called the Yellow Room. And so you go in the Yellow Room, and depending on the topic or the category that you're looking to gain more insight on, you'll be able to watch those videos and get the information that you need. And then by signing up with that, it gives you discounts and access to other personal one-on-one coaching programs and social media management packages that we'll have available for clients that need more. So those are the 2 things I'm excited about. And obviously, you mentioned CreatorCon. Every year, November 15th, we'll host that conference, and it'll always be here in Detroit, but we're always seeking to grow and bring people from other parts of the world to the conference. And this year will be no different. So regardless of where you are, if you're looking for connections in real estate, the loan industry, fashion, technology, hospitality, CreatorCon is the ideal place to come and find like-minded people to have those conversations and grow your network.
I love it. I love it. I can't wait to watch as you continue to grow. I mean, some of our mutual friendships are just incredible that we haven't met up until now, but here we are, and I'm really honored and excited. I know for those of you guys in my network and my community, Robert and I will both be at Fuse in October here in Nashville alongside the AIM organization and Jonathan. So if you have listened to this and you're like, where can I go, or I can talk to both of them at the same time, please come to Nashville in October. Come to Fuse. Robert will be there. I'll be there. And we would love to meet you and hang out together and answer some more questions. Maybe we should do a podcast with Jonathan in real time at Fuse. I feel like that would be dope. So let's do it. Thank you, Robert. I really appreciate your time. I know my audience will get so much out of this. So until next time, guys, please tune in, listen to the episode, save it, share it. We're on all of the platforms. And of course, we live off of reviews. So if you are on Spotify or Apple, please leave us a review. Let us know if you liked it. And of course, too, if you have anybody like Robert or somebody that you think I need to interview that would be helpful for you guys as an audience, please let me know. And until then, we'll see you guys in the next episode of the Coffee and Questions podcast.
Let's make this number one. We got to bump John.